Hi there, somebody asked me recently to explain the difference between freezing rain and hail. Now, there's a world of difference, particularly how they form meteorologically speaking. They're not remotely related. There's a difference between frozen precipitation in terms of meteorology and freezing rain. Freezing rain refers to a particular setup in meteorological situations that cause very, very dangerous and significantly dangerous conditions. There's a song, I think Tony Christie sings it, or maybe it's written by somebody else, called Drive Safely Darling, and every time I hear it, it's always played at Christmas time, there's a lyric in the song that says, "Drive safely darling, the weatherman says the freezing rain will turn to snow." And I always think, I always answer the radio, I don't know if you do it too, but sure, that would be better. Because driving in freezing rain is lethal. You have an immediate slick of black ice, because what is happening is the rain is freezing on impact with the ground and forming black ice, and it's incredibly slippery and incredibly dangerous. So if frozen precipitation in the form of snow or sleet or even hail, which again is very different, not as dangerous, although hail is quite dangerous to drive in, is not as dangerous as driving in freezing rain. Hail is formed in a cumulonimbus cloud when the raindrops freeze and then they form a ball from the movement up and down through the atmosphere, catching onto other freezing raindrops, and then the movement up and down in that updraft and downdraft within the cloud is what basically forms a snowball, and then they shoot out, of course, when they've gotten to the point of being too heavy to stay in the cloud. But this is a video about freezing rain. So we don't see freezing rain very much in Ireland at all. I read a great book, oh God, a long time ago. It's called The Ice Storm. I think it's Rick Moody, and it's about an ice storm in New England. There was a New England ice storm, I think in 2008, that was caused devastation across the region there, with major blackouts. And this book was based on a 1973 ice storm, and it's a fascinating book. It's about what happens in a significant meteorological situation. The reason it's so significant, and it happens in New England, in that part of the world, a lot, because it gets significantly cold there. And then we have passages of warmer air moving in, falling as freezing rain, and then you get this slick. And what happens in an ice storm, this freezing rain falls onto the power lines, freezes into ice. The ice is very heavy, and it brings down the power lines almost instantly, and in a widespread area, because warm front, which is what causes the freezing rain, is a widespread area of rain falling through this freezing air and causing ice immediately. So the meteorological definition of freezing rain: when you have very, very, very cold weather, so sub-zero temperatures on the ground, sub-zero temperatures in the air just above the ground. So nicely set up for snow. Then what happens is a warm front comes through, and if you remember, warm air rises up over the cold air. So the warm air rises up over the cold air at the surface, and then the precipitation starts when the nimbus stratus comes down, the rain clouds come down, the rain starts. Now it starts as snow in the upper atmosphere, because rain starts as snow in the upper atmosphere and it's falling through the cold air. But then what's happening with a warm front is this nose of warm air has moved over the cold air, and for a very short period of time, the frozen precipitation, the snow, falls through the warmer air. It melts back into liquid, but it doesn't go above freezing. It falls back into the cold air near the surface. It doesn't have time to go back into a solid ice drop, snowflake, before it hits the ground. So it hits the ground super cooled. So I'll say that again. You've got cold air, cold surface, cold ground, sub-zero cold ground. You've got a warm front approaching. The warm air starts to precipitate. It falls as snow aloft, because it's even warmer, it's cold aloft. But as it moves down, the warm nose of air has moved through the freezing line. And that warm nose of air, because the warm air rises up over the cold air, that warm nose of air causes the frozen precipitation to melt back into liquid just near the surface, and it doesn't have time to turn back into a snowflake before it hits the ground. So it hits the ground as a super cooled droplet, and that's what's called freezing rain. And it's very different to frozen precipitation. It's freezing rain. It's a fascinating meteorological situation. And as I said, it does not generally happen a lot here in Ireland, mostly because here in Ireland it just doesn't get cold enough for long enough to allow that setup to happen. It has happened. I've seen it. I remember seeing that warm nose of air on the tephrogram. I've put a tephrogram into the video here so you can see it. It does happen. It can happen. It just doesn't happen very often, and that's because of course of our temperate climate. There's some great videos online if you want to explore further, and I've put some links in below. I hope that you found that helpful. Okay, slán go fóill.